So a new segment we're working on. We're gonna call it Sunday Dinner Albums, where one of us will be pre-flight, tell the person about an album we want to discuss on the podcast. Basically gonna do an interview format. This week Jordan brings the album and I'm gonna ask him a couple of questions. He's gonna talk about the album and then I'll give my few thoughts on it. So this album, you want to name it or you want me to name it?
Yeah, it's called AM Paradox. Came out in 2016.
Who's it by?
Brent Faiyaz,
All
a
right.
Toxic King.
Uh so I didn't pre-flight this question, but how'd you get put onto him? Where did he come from? Because he's pretty new to me. So
Okay, how did I discover him? You know that song "Crew"? She
yeah,
sees money all around.
yeah.
That's him. He sings the hook. So that's how
Was
I
that
found
before or
him.
after this album?
Uh, I think before. Let me see. "Crew." I feel like it's probably around the same time. Nope, wrong song. Oh, there it is. Uh, Damn, it's not pulling up.
All
Yeah, I
right.
think around the same time, within a year or two.
All right. So okay,
Oh, 2017. So it actually came out after that.
but you might have
So yeah,
heard discovered the song and then went back and listened to the album.
yeah, and then I went back and listened to found his other shit.
What
Yeah.
is your favorite track on the album?
Um, I go back and forth. It really depends on my mood because he it you know. I'd probably say my favorite song off this project. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna go Poison.
Okay.
Right now, I toggle between Poison and Lovely. But I'm gonna
Okay.
go Poison. Um, I love the kind of old like 90s R&B kind of vibe to it. The slowed down beat, I miss R&B where it's actually like about like liking a girl as opposed to just like fucking, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
uh and I would, girl, you do damage to me. I mean, we've all been there, so
Yeah.
it's extremely relatable.
If you could cut one, well, there's only five songs on it, so I doubt this would. If you could cut something, it wouldn't be a classic if there's only five songs on it. So, what is your least favorite song on the
True.
album?
My least favorite song, I'd probably say, yeah, I'd say Invite Me is probably my
Okay.
and I don't even dislike that song, but if just ranking one through five, I'd say that's probably the worst song on the project, quote
So this would
unquote.
be that answers my next question. Did you have any skips? But if you just said yeah, you just no skips. So
Yeah,
what memory, since music to me is most closely tied to memories, times, and places. So what memory
yeah.
or situation do you closely attach this album to?
Huh, that's good. I think probably around between like 2018 and 2020.
Okay.
I think it's around when I found this particular project. I love one of my favorite things to do is, I mean, I live life in a rush a lot, like for work and shit like that, So like I try to make time to just like do shit that I just enjoy doing for the sake of doing it. So I love like going for drives at night, just nowhere in particular. I just drive around up and down Glenwood for, an hour or so sometimes. And this is one of those projects that I just would rip up and down the road, not rip up and down the road, but drive up and down and listen to on a loop at night, especially like if I had a lot on my mind. I think 2020 was obviously like one of the worst years ever, and one of the
Good do shit
casualties
but
of
drive in a circle.
right,
Uh,
one of the casualties of my life that happened in 2020 was I went through a bad breakup, and so I would listen to that song all the time. Just processing and, we don't really, guys, we don't talk about our feelings. So listening to music is kind of how I communicate, so to speak.
fair enough. Yeah, okay. Well, all right. Anything else? What does the album mean to you? You just kind of went through that. We're still workshopping the segment, but anything else you
Right.
want to?
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, this project is like so succinct and it's crazy because it's only basically 10 years old, but it's kind of very retro in the way that it was made because like if you listen to a project now that's five songs, that's 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like versus a five song, EP and it's 22 minutes, 22 minutes. Um, we talk about the, Sunday dinner aspect of it. He's got like skits in there and his intros and outros. There's hooks. There's pre-bridges. There's you know what I mean to
It's
the
crafted.
songs.
It doesn't feel like five random songs from his hard drive.
Correct. It's a story.
It's a story. It's well connected. Um, if I may, probably could link with a vocal coach, work out some of that.
Yeah, that's a
Work,
common. That's a
you know,
common
like it's,
criticism.
it's
This is very early in his career. Yeah.
it's that's the other thing too is I had to check the ages. He's 29
Right.
today, which means this
Correct.
album came out 9 years ago, which makes him 20, 19 years old. Which
Yeah.
makes sense because it definitely made me like it sounded like I was listening to my little brother and his friends talk about girls.
Right. Right. Right.
It's like there was a youthful it's
Negligence.
charming in it and it makes sense now because
Right.
I had a critique at first. I was like these niggas is a little old for this. But then I looked it up and I'm like no, they literally were that's how I sounded about girls when I was 20 years old. So
Right.
and I'm certain if he made an album today there'd be more maturity to it. So I'm going to grade that. I'm going to grade that as a 19-year-old. But it's definitely
Correct.
new nigga music, but he's 19 years old when he made it.
Yeah.
And so it gets to be a bit juvenile in spots.
Mhm.
When he tells the woman I feel safe by myself, wasn't really feeling that. Um, as you get older as a man, you realize that you're supposed to be safety, not look, you
Look for
don't
safety in
look for
others.
safety in others. Which
Yeah.
I guess he kind of was getting there, saying I feel safe by myself, but like
Hmm.
saying that to a woman is off-putting because you're supposed to be her safety.
Right.
But I mean, at 19, I didn't understand that either.
Right.
So that's a question I had. Is this a breakup album?
Um, yeah, I'd say so.
I would think so.
Yeah, I'd say so. Or it's one of those albums you make when you're like when you know you with someone that you should break up with.
Yeah. And that was the other critique I had of it too. Is as there's a lot of wallowing and self-pity. But
Yeah,
again, that's what 19-year-olds do when they break up.
correct.
Like one of my biggest critiques of breakup albums made by grown-ups is that they always sound
Hmm.
like teenagers, right? Like the
Mm,
crying, the world is ending,
yeah,
staring out the window but like when you're a
yeah,
grown up and you break up, you still gotta go work in the morning. No one,
right.
you can't go tell your landlord I'm heartbroken, I can't pay you this month. Like the world has to keep spinning. So I
Yeah.
like the breakup albums that talk about how you keep going through it and
Mm,
how you
okay.
put on a face for it, even if you're dying inside, right? And
Right.
so, but again, these are things that I wrote down before I went and looked it up and saw he was 19 years old. Because when I was 19 years old and I went through breakups, I wallowed in self-pity. I didn't get out of bed.
Correct.
That's what
Yeah.
19-year-olds do. So it's totally
Right.
age appropriate for the time that he wrote the music.
Correct.
And so with that proper context, I gave it I can view the music through that lens and I don't have such harsh critiques of it anymore. It's a really good album.
Hmm.
It's very cohesive.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, there's some spots where, and again, he might have the resources to get a vocal coach now, to get a producer to be like,
Right.
because a lot of people think producing is just making beats,
It's not.
but
You're
producing
basically
is
directing
also
the
like,
album.
yeah, you're producing the music. You're like, come in a little lower there.
Yeah.
Like come in a little. Let's
Yeah.
re-record that. You're a little pitchy there. Let's change that
Right.
word. And he might be able to afford higher end production quality now.
Correct. So
Because
I
it's
yeah, and I
I'm assuming he's young. He didn't have his bag right. So,
right.
there's some spots there where the vocals aren't strong or the sounding is a little off. And I'm just going to chalk that up to
Correct.
being youthful and not having a budget. Once we
That's
blow
very
up, our
true.
cameras will be better. Our mics will be
Yeah, they'll
better.
be like, what's that homeless shit they were doing?
And so like it's there's a startup company charm to the album that
Correct.
I didn't
Yeah.
have on my first listen because I went back and looked at it and was like, oh, he's a youngin' at this time. It's 2016. I'm just
Yeah.
grabbing it and listening to it. And so the second and third listen, because I listened to it 3 times,
Hmm.
with that context, there's a youthful startup company
Right.
charm to it that you miss if you don't realize that he's so young.
Correct. Yeah, that's very true. I think one thing also important to state, I forgot to state why. I mean, I just like him as an artist, but also I think what I love about him too is that he's independent, which is
Yeah.
why he probably didn't have the resources, the vocal coach and all that kind of stuff. Um, and really, also, I did want to say, I don't know if you were going to ask me this or not, but one of my favorite lines from the album, I don't know if you had one or not. we haven't got to your opinion yet, full opinion yet of it, is on Insecure where he says, the reason I can't apply all of me is because I ain't the one.
Yeah.
And I found that extremely relatable.
Actually, I
Um,
don't have a favorite. I mean, I guess I wasn't. Now that I know to look for it, I will have, that answer
right.
in future segments. But no, I didn't write down a favorite line on the album. I
Okay.
just kind of had more meta critiques of it. But no,
Yeah.
like I said, you need the context of it being like a startup.
Right.
This is recorded. This is reminds me of like recording with the laptop in the garage and
Right.
it's
With the
very
or in the closet with the foam padding and shit,
correct.
you know.
It's very out the trunk music, and there's a
Yeah.
certain charm to it once you realize that that's what it is. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It's a
Yeah.
brisk 20 minutes. The skits give it life. It feels lived in, even if
Hmm.
I mean, again, some of the conversations were quite juvenile, like the condom conversations.
Yeah, yeah,
They
that shit was
sounded like
crazy.
teenagers.
Yeah.
They sounded like teenagers, but they were teenagers. So that's kind of it was,
Yeah.
at 19 years old, you barely know what fucking is, and so they're kids.
Yeah.
So
And he was in a group called Sonder, so I think this might have been his first solo project too, if
yeah,
memory serves. So he was like fresh out the gates on this one for sure. But
what's he up to these days?
so he's still pretty big and making music. He dropped an album I really liked it maybe a year or two ago called Wasteland.
Okay,
Uh, Find it here. When did it come out? Uh, Brent Faiyaz. Uh, okay, yeah, 2022. Oh wow, 3 years ago. But yeah, that's not too long as far as music goes. But yeah, he drops pretty frequently, like every year or two. He has another EP or album that I really fuck with, called "Fuck the World."
yeah.
Came out a year or two, a couple years after that one. And that one has some bangers on it. And his sound is really obviously grown as an artist in terms of vocally, but also just like him able to do, different kinds of rhythms and song making choices and stuff like that.
All right,
Um,
well, I'll have to check him out, man.